The New York Jets finished the 2024 season with a 5-12 record and missed the playoffs for the Jets fans, 14th straight year. It was a very frustrating year to say the least, as they started out 0-1 with a road loss to the 49ers.
And the pass is broken up and now picked off.
Then won 2 in a row to improve to 2-1, then lost 5 straight to fall to 2-6 and never really recovered. Former head coach Robert Saleh was fired after a 23-17 loss in London to the Minnesota Vikings, and the timing of this surprised everyone as they were coming off of back-to-back losses by a combined 7 points, and the season was still very much alive. They traded for Davante Adams after falling to 2-4 in hopes that this would save their season and that the Jets could legitimately compete for a playoff spot.
Hey, good to see you, Tay!
Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and everyone was fired either before or at season's end, and a lot of the big names were gone this offseason too. GM Darren Muji and head coach Aaron Glenn had their work cut out for them as they took over at One Jets Drive in Florham Park, New Jersey. And I know a lot of people like to get their jokes in about the Jets, and how Jets is actually an acronym for Just End the Season, but these are not the same old Jets.
The New York Jets select Armand Membu.
And while there may not be a drastic change in the win and loss column in 2025, I truly believe 2025 is the foundation of who the Jets are going to be in 2026 and beyond. And before we start, if you could like the video, I would really appreciate it, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video by discussing what the New York Jets did in free agency, both in terms of who they lost and who they brought in. And obviously the 2024 Jets season did not go according to plan, and not just one way, but countless ways, and there was always going to be a big topic of discussion of how they would go about getting rid of Aaron Rodgers, and along with that, Davante Adams too. Unless the Jets won the Super Bowl and Rodgers retired and Davante Adams welcomed coming back after winning a Super Bowl, I always thought it was going to be an ugly breakup, and the Jets ended up releasing both players and they moved on to new teams. CJ Mosley also retired, Tyron Smith retired, Morgan Moses went to the Patriots, DJ Reed went to the Lions, and several other players left too. And despite a lot of these guys being big names, even Javon Kinlaw and Hassan Reddick left too in free agency, I would argue most of these guys leaving, really outside of Tyler Conklin, DJ Reed, CJ Mosley, and Tyron Smith, though Mosley and Tyron Smith are kind of different discussions, were net positives for the Jets, meaning the Jets weren't losing much by losing guys like Aaron Rodgers and Javon Kinlaw. Obviously, a lot of the 2024 Jets season was headlined by a combination of Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, and Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas getting fired when they did. But lost within the 2024 Jets season was this was not a good team on either side of the football. The Jets were 20th in points allowed, 20th in turnovers forced defensively, 21st in EPA per play defensively, and also 21st in defensive DVOA. So even though they lost several players in free agency, especially on the defensive side of the football, it's not the end of the world. I certainly would have preferred the Jets to keep DJ Reed rather than sign Brandon Stevens, and I think that was by far the biggest loss defensively, but I don't think the loss of a number 2 corner in DJ Reed is going to have this team go from around 20th defensively to 32nd in 1 year. What is also unfortunate for the 2025 Jets specifically is how much dead money they have entering the year, which inevitably limited what they were going to be able to do this offseason. And per Spotrac.com, the Jets were 7th in dead money as they had over $63 million in dead cap money, and what this means is, on their books for the 2025 season, they are paying Aaron Rodgers, CJ Mosley, Davante Adams, Tyron Smith, Tyler Conklin, Mike Williams, DJ Reed, and Javon Kinlaw a combined $58.35 million to not play for the Jets this year. And all of this plays into why I think 2025 is the foundation for who the Jets are going to be in 2026 and beyond. Outside of Justin Fields, Brandon Stevens, and Andre Cisco, they did not pay anyone over $3 million per year in free agency. And I think Justin Fields is a bit of an outlier just because of how unique of a situation that is entering 2025, and given the fact the 2025 quarterback draft class wasn't good, the Jets couldn't roll into the 2025 season with Tyrod Taylor as their starting quarterback as a 15-year veteran and more or less hope for the best. Justin Fields was a dart throw, and if he works, then they have a 26-year-old franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future. And if he doesn't, well, the 2026 quarterback class is expected to be a lot better than the 25 quarterback class, and that's where the Jets could get their next franchise signal caller. But again, outside of Justin Fields and Brandon Stevens, every player they signed in free agency was to a one-year contract, and this all plays into why 2025 is the foundation for the New York Jets so that they can have a better tomorrow. Now, I can't wait to see how the defense plays this year, and earlier we talked about losing guys in free agency like DJ Reed, Javon Kinlaw, and Hassan Reddick, and even Solomon Thomas to name a few, but they are still returning 8 of 11 starters from last year, and this is a unit I'm really excited about entering 2025 for a few reasons. I am eager to see how Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilks work together because Glenn loves man coverage, while Steve Wilks is more of a zone coverage DC, and I am eager to see the changes that take place throughout the 2025 season. I know Steve Wilks will be calling the plays, but that doesn't mean Aaron Glenn is going to be hands-off and not have any input either. The front seven should look a lot different for the Jets in 2025, at least from a playing style standpoint, and I know that they lost Javon Kinlaw in free agency, but he was not good against the run and hasn't been throughout his career, and Jets fans would certainly agree it was frustrating watching this team defend the run last year, and they didn't accidentally allow 22 rushing touchdowns over the course of the season, which had them at 28th in the NFL. Losing Jermaine Johnson was obviously huge as he tore his Achilles in just week 2 of last year, and that certainly affected the run defense at times, but it also would not be fair to attribute the woes strictly due to losing Jermaine Johnson. I like Will McDonald a lot as a pass rusher, but he can also be a huge liability in the run game, and it's shown over the first few years of his career. But one of the biggest reasons I think these are not the same old New York Jets is because there's no distractions heading into the season, and I think this is the start of what's going to be a better tomorrow. I like Aaron Glenn's leadership and think he is the breath of fresh air this building has needed for a long time, and even Ben Johnson, the now head coach of the Bears, who was the OC of the Lions while Glenn was the DC of the Lions, said himself that, quote, he is more prepared to be a head coach than maybe anybody I've ever met, and I think he'd do a phenomenal job in charge, end quote. And the Jets defense has a lot of pieces in place with guys like Jermaine Johnson, Quinnen Williams, his brother Quincy Williams, and of course Sauce Gardner. And we certainly don't say this about every team, but I really like the depth the Jets have in the secondary. I think this is a considerably deep team at corner, and as long as Tony Adams and Andre Sisco can hold up at safety, I like where this team is heading into 2025. I do think that third-round rookie Azareye'h Thomas will start at some point, as I do think Brandon Stevens can certainly be a liability in coverage, but I like where the back end of this defense is a lot more than other teams. I think the run defense will be a work in progress throughout the season, as I still have a lot of questions around Derek Nottie, Byron Cowart, and Jay Tufele behind Big Q, and this is not an overnight rebuild, and not every hole is going to get fixed in one offseason. And why I am higher on the 2025 Jets defense than a lot of people may think is because, for the most part, this is a really good unit. They finished 8th in defensive EPA per play in 2022 and 3rd in 2023 before falling all the way to 21st last year. Sauce Gardner definitely had a down year for his standards, but he's still a really good player, and when this defense really buys into what Aaron Glenn is preaching and not have distraction after distraction like they did last year, and hopefully better health along with that too, I think you're going to see a much improved defense really by default. Quinnen Williams is coming off of 3 straight Pro Bowl seasons as he's racked up 50 or more pressures in every year, and my biggest thing with the 2025 Jets is if we can get to 3rd and 6, they're going to be fine. Admittedly, my biggest concern with the Jets is the run defense and Brandon Stevens holding up in coverage, but I think nickel corner Michael Carter will be back, who also had a down 2024 season, and I have very few concerns with Jamie Sherwood and Quincy Williams at linebacker. Both players are good at what they do, and I don't think either player gets the recognition they deserve nationally. The 2025 Jets season, in a lot of ways, to me is going to resemble the 2021 Lions season. Not in the fact they might start out 0-10-1, but the fact you're going to see a team fully buy in and make continuous strides over the course of the season. I don't expect the Jets to go 10-7 this year and to surprise everyone, but I do think they will be a nuisance to play because they're going to embody the mentality of their head coach, and that's going to be a team that never gives up and a team that is never out of the game, and we haven't seen that with the Jets over the past few years, and that is why these are not the same old New York Jets. I really liked what the Jets did in the 2025 draft and gave them an A- draft grade, and they were one of only a handful of teams to receive an A- or better draft grade. Now, I thought there was room for them to receive an A or an A+, and we'll get into why they did not receive an A or an A+ in a minute, but for the first three selections in the 2025 draft that the Jets had, I thought they nailed it. They selected Armand Membu, an impressive right tackle from Missouri, Mason Taylor, a tight end from LSU, and Azareye'h Thomas, a corner from Florida State. One of my favorite things about all three of these players is they're all 21 years old, and there is a ramp for all three of these guys to grow, not just in 2025, but in 26, 27, and even further down the road for them to really grow and to develop as New York Jets as time goes on. And for Membu specifically, this was a player who had over 400 pass blocking snaps during his final year at Missouri and allowed a grand total of 8 pressures. He's a really good tackle, and when I was watching his tape, I really asked myself several times, what are his weaknesses? Because there's not many. He does everything at a really high level, and he, of course, is going to give up pressures throughout the season, as everybody's going to give up a pressure or two throughout the year, but he has a really strong anchor. He's really athletic for how big of a player he is, and I think he's going to continue that type of success at the NFL level. And I also really liked Olu Fashanu in the 2024 draft process, so for Darren Muji to come in and build off of that and to really set the tone for Aaron Glenn's roster for 25 and beyond. Guys, I love this tackle duo of now Olu Fashanu on the left side and Armand Membu on the right side, and I thought that was a tone-setting pick to be Aaron Glenn's first selection as the head coach of the New York Jets in terms of where this roster is going to be in 2026 and beyond. Now, the Jets enter the 2025 draft in a pretty difficult situation because the tight ends on their roster were not great, and we often talk about teams not wanting to head into the draft with nothing at quarterback, which is kind of why I think the Giants signed both Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston prior to the 2025 draft, and I don't think there was an intention for them to have both of those guys along with Jackson Dart at the start of the 25 season. But the point is the Giants couldn't go into the draft without either of those guys and basically say to everyone, hey, we're selecting a quarterback in the first round, so if you want to trade up in front of us, by all means, we are a sitting duck. And that kind of applies to the Jets, specifically at the tight end position, because outside of Mason Taylor, the tight ends on the roster are Jeremy Ruckert, Stone Smart, and Zach Kuntz, and needless to say, that would not be a good tight end room, and that would definitively be one of the bottom 2 tight end rooms in the NFL. So while I do think the Jets reached a little bit on Mason Taylor, I still think that he will prove to be well worth the second round selection, and that he will be a good player over the course of his NFL career. Azareye'h Thomas, the corner from Florida State, was a prospect I liked a lot, and I thought it was the definition of an Aaron Glenn selection. He's a big physical press corner, and the one knock on Azareye'h Thomas, admittedly, is his speed, as he's a sub 4.5 guy, so you definitely do not want him out there in a one-on-one go ball with Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill, and if he is forced to be in one of those situations, then believe it or not, there is an NFL coaching staff on the sideline, and that would be on them for putting Azareye'h Thomas in one of those situations. He reminds me a lot of Amik Robertson from the Lions, who also played under Aaron Glenn last year, and Amik Robertson is a very tough, nasty physical corner, and I think that's how Azareye'h Thomas can be by year 2 or year 3. And like we mentioned, Azareye'h Thomas, Mason Taylor, and Armand Membu are all 21-year-old rookies. They're not 24 going on 25, and I know COVID obviously played a role in the NFL draft over the past 5 years where, everybody gets a COVID year, everybody gets an extra redshirt year, but these are all 21-year-old rookies, and I think there was also a purpose to drafting those 21-year-old rookies, and it's that they are going to develop so by the time they're 24 or 25, they can really hit that next contract and still be 25, 26 years old and be long-time New York Jets. If there's one bold prediction I have for this video, it's that Azareye'h Thomas will be a starting corner opposite Sauce Gardner by the end of the 25 season, and it's also a combination of me being high on Azareye'h Thomas and also admittedly lower on corner Brandon Stevens. Where the 2025 Jets draft class started to go a little sideways for me was when they selected Arian Smith in the early part of the 4th round. If you are not aware of what Arian Smith's game is, right now he is a one-trick pony, and that one trick is speed. When he steps on the football field, trust me, he is the fastest guy on the football field, but there's a lot of negatives within his game. He has a significant drop rate, as he not only had the worst drop rate of any receiver in the 2025 draft process, but he had one of the worst drop rates out of any receiver in college football in 2024, and that's kind of tough when that is the main part of his job, which is catching the football. And not only that, but he's also not a great route runner, and right now his route tree is really go balls or post routes, and when you really have one trick, quarterback, you can really just shield the safety over his side of the field and effectively take him out of the game. And because he's already not good at catching the football on a consistent level, he's not going to catch contested passes when he can't catch the open passes. So in a lot of ways, I thought this was burning a 4th round pick, though I would welcome being wrong and hope that Arian Smith has a successful NFL career. Malachi Moore, the DB from Alabama, and Francisco Mauiaga, the linebacker from Miami, I thought were also very Aaron Glenn selections. And again, I mean that in the best way possible. I think each guy is going to have a defined, limited role early on, and specifically Mauiaga in the run game. I think there's a very real chance where he plays 100 or 200 snaps as a rookie in clear running situations to come in and try and blow up a gap, because this is a run-stuffing linebacker. Linebackers over the past 15 or 20 years have gotten lighter, and we've seen that, but this is your typical old-school 235-pound linebacker, and while he's not 260 like the linebackers were in the early 2000s, this is a guy that can come in and set the tone, and again, I think that is an Aaron Glenn selection in the best way possible. I thought the Jets did a really good job all throughout the 2025 draft, again, minus the Arian Smith selection, because I thought he was really around the 300th best player in this class, and I thought they burned a pick at 110, specifically when a receiver like Alec Iomanor from Stanford was available for them. But overall, the Jets should have at minimum 2, if not 3 starters from the 2025 class, and I thought they did a really good job of, as simple as this idea is, improving the roster and building for a better tomorrow. All right, for the 2025 Jets team preview, we welcome on NBC and NFL draft analyst Connor Rogers. Connor, how are we doing?
I'm good, man. How are you? It's been a minute.
It has. It's it's 3rd time on the channel, and you're surpassing a couple of people you may know in terms of the guest appearances. So
we got the fancy background now.
Yes, the logo.
We got the J Jettas. We got the YouTube.
Plaque, yep.
Is that subscribers?
Yes, 100.
Based on? Oh, what a flex! Right behind you at all times. Stock exchange could never.
The stock exchange is soon. But speaking of the stock exchange, you're now passing Trevor Sikkema in terms of guest appearances on the channel with 3. He has 2. So
I love to hear that.
You might know him. You also might know Marcus Whitman as another guest that's been on the channel too.
Marcus is a good friend.
He'll be 3 later this summer for the Packers. And then another guest, you might know him very well, Bengal.
Oh yes, my arch nemesis, Bengal.
So I had him on for a mock draft earlier this year, and I said that he's tied Connor Rogers in terms of the all-time appearances. And in very Bengal fashion, he just, without breaking smirk, nothing, he just said, he kind of just puffed out his nose. He just went, "I've heard of him," and we just kept moving on. So
that's the way it's done.
Yeah, 100%. So
yeah, and you're damn right, he's heard of me.
Yeah. Well, let's just go ahead and just dive. I'm not gonna get into beef what's not mine, but let's just go ahead and just dive into the 2025 Jets. Very simple first question. Just what are your expectations for Justin Fields as the starter in 2025?
It's the golden question, right? I think that, it usually falls into 2 buckets. And ironically, the answer always lies somewhere in the middle when you have 2 constant buckets. The first being that people are looking at, can Justin Fields be the next former 1st-round quarterback that is facing adversity, is on his, with these guys are on multiple teams, and he finds it after a couple different stops, many different coordinators, and he turns out to be somebody's franchise quarterback, where we went through this with Baker Mayfield. It didn't work out. Baker played some really good football in Cleveland, and it fell apart for a couple of reasons. He had a couple stops other places where it didn't go so well, and he's become everything we all hope for with the Bucs. The latest one, and why this has become kind of a hot button topic in the NFL, is that Sam Darnold had a breakout year with the Vikings. And I think we're going to, as you know very well, Garrett, I think we're going to learn a lot about Sam Darnold this year, which is going to be really interesting to see which way that one goes. But now the attention often turns to, can Justin Fields be the next guy and have this great year? And, he ends up being the Jets guy for the long-term future. The other bucket is people are just like, Fields has shown us nothing to believe that he's a starting NFL quarterback. It's the Jets, where it never works out at quarterback. The Jets ultimately will be, moving on from Fields and looking for a quarterback next offseason. My honest take is right now, why I think it's somewhere in the middle, is I think Fields is a bridge quarterback that you can win games with in a very specific offense. I think this is a team under Aaron Glenn and Tanner Engstrand that they want to be run heavy. They want to incorporate Fields, designed runs and scrambles into the offense. Obviously, that's going to be the bread and butter of this offense that's a little limited at wide receiver after Garrett Wilson. And then the fact is he a guy that, if you fall behind 2 or 3 touchdowns, you think can lift you to a win, and he's in that throw script all the time and you have success that way? I don't think Fields is going to fall into that bucket, where ultimately what I think is Fields is solid this season. The Jets win 7 games with him. There's not a ton of moments where he single-handedly lifts you to those wins, but he also doesn't make a ton of mistakes where you feel okay with him under center. And that the Jets do look for their franchise quarterback of the future in the draft, but don't feel backed into a corner where they, like the Giants this year, right? Where they have to take somebody with a top 12 pick or whatever it may be. And then they can use Fields as a bridge starter the following year as well with a young quarterback that doesn't have to play right away. So I think, and when you have a season like that, where it's kind of in the middle of the pack, the combo, the good Fields weeks, everybody will be like, Fields should be the guy. They should work out an extension. They have him under contract for 2 years, so that shouldn't be a combo anyway. And then the other combo after the bad weeks is, we told you this is his 3rd stop. It hasn't worked out for a reason. Give Tyrod Taylor a shot. So, and it'll all come to kind of fruition at the end of the year, where it kind of falls right where we expect him to be, is a run-heavy quarterback that does protect the football in a very limited offense. And the Jets are kind of trying to build something more through their run game and defense, not necessarily centered on Fields being a hero.
So off of that, I mean, this is all around. I know everybody, gets their jokes in. I mean, people get their jokes in about the Jets, but the offensive line is terrific for him, especially, Justin's been a slow processor throughout his career that dates all the way back to Ohio State. If I were a Jets fan, I feel like I'd be buying in just with him specifically this year, because I feel like this is the best situation he's had. So do you think that not only for Justin Fields, but for Breece Hall, that this is, especially in a contract year where Breece Hall finally eclipses the 1,000-yard mark and truly breaks out as the player that everybody expected him to be coming out of Iowa State?
The Breece aspect is based on health, because he's the type of player that could have had 1,000 yards already in a bad offense just based on talent, because he has that level of talent when he's healthy. The problem is he hasn't been healthy. And it's one of those situations where obviously he had the significant knee injury a couple of years ago, but last year didn't participate in OTAs, kind of ran hot and cold throughout the year in terms of looking right and not looking right and being banged up and playing anyway. And an offense that, this kind of transitions me to the next point, is coaching. The coaching was abysmal on offense, where we don't know what kind of offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand is going to be, but it's hard to imagine him being as bad or worse than what they had with Nathaniel Hackett. And even when they moved on from Hackett and put Downing in play calling duties, it's Aaron Rodgers' offense, and it kind of felt like more of the same. So that's a boost basically by default. And then the health factor with Breece is a variable that you really can't predict, right? Unless you're the doctor for Breece Hall and you know what's going on with these injuries or what's not, or if he's fully cleared and healthy or ready to go, or he's just kind of playing through something that's lingering for a while now. Then you look at what you brought up, which is the offensive line talent, which is really, really important. Now, you never want to get too ahead of your skis, because young offensive linemen take their, licks throughout the, development of the NFL season. They don't come in and play like all pros right away, but there's a lot of reasons to be bullish on this group. Olu Fashanu, when he played last year, was just tremendous in pass protection. Looked like everything we thought he would be coming out of Penn State. John Simpson was ironically one of Joe Douglas's best signings at left guard out of Baltimore, and really, really settled in nicely, where you feel good about that left side of the offensive line. I know there's some smoke around Joe Tippmann and Josh Myers competing for center. I thought with the way Tippmann played at center last year, I don't really buy into that. Tippmann is this team's starting center. His athleticism in the zone running game could be a weapon. Elijah Vera Tucker was finally healthy and really solid for them at right guard. And then obviously you took Armand Membu with the top 10 pick to be your right tackle, who could be a powerhouse run blocker and somebody that has real explosive lower half that you hope his pass pro continues to develop, where that group can really get things going downhill for you. That makes life easier for Justin Fields, knowing the identity of the Lions passing attack, not just playing heavier in terms of their personnel, but the play action under center offense, which they didn't do with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers wasn't comfortable with that, clearly. They ran a ton of shotgun. They ran pistol. They were not comfortable. He was not comfortable going under center. It really limited their run game. It made them extremely predictable. They weren't really good off play action. And now they're able to do all those things. So that has a trickle effect. The coaching and the offensive line upgrades should, in theory, help Justin Fields. But if Breece Hall is really, really healthy, I do think he can get over that 1,000-yard mark. And because they only have Garrett Wilson at wide receiver, Breece is going to really be, I don't want to say guaranteed, but it looks like a lot of targets are going to be on his lap in the pass game.
That's very fair. And I wanted to, you mentioned Tanner Engstrand earlier. He's kind of worked his way up from a quality control coach to a pass game coordinator and now to an OC, and he traveled with Glenn from Detroit. So based on, and every coaching staff is different, but how level of excitement, where do you stand with Tanner Engstrand versus, any of the past couple of years, just kind of from a play calling standpoint?
Well,
I know.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I was just saying, I know it's a little different with like the Rodgers aspect and then, and everything because of how high the expectations were. But
I think what I like is just that the team has like a cohesive, synergy and the ability to actually operate together as a full team. The problem the Jets ran into, right, with the whole Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh era that eventually became the Aaron Rodgers era was Saleh got hired and he had a very clear identity defensively. He had an attacking front four that played a lot of quarters on the back end and man coverage on third downs. And they were an aggressive defense that can get off the field. And they were good enough against the run that they got themselves opportunities to get off the field and passing downs. And that worked. He built that up where that unit was firing on all cylinders. His idea with offense was, okay, I'm going to bring over Michael LaFleur from San Francisco, a guy I know really, really well, who's going to implement a lot of modern principles and creative play calling, whether that's trick plays, whether that's a lot of different stuff. And LaFleur did a pretty good job, but was completely hamstrung by the selection of Zach Wilson that never really allowed the offense to function at the level it needed to. The problem was after the Jets disappointed in that Zach Wilson era, somebody had to go. And I will, always believe it was a Woody Johnson decision, not a Robert Saleh decision. They let LaFleur go. They try to make it work with Zach Wilson. They obviously eventually move on to Aaron Rodgers. And then that's all a divide, right? If you have Robert Saleh's defense, but then you bring in Aaron Rodgers, okay, now it's Aaron Rodgers' offense. And we need to go get everybody that Aaron Rodgers works with to make his offense work, which is Nathaniel Hackett. Now you're limiting your ceiling of what you could be, and you're just not a cohesive unit as a whole. The Jets failed to have an identity for a really, really long time. Now with Aaron Glenn here as really, to me, he's the CEO of this football team. He has more power than the GM. He's going to be involved in all kinds of personnel like Bill Parcells was many moons ago. And he's got to earn the level of clout Bill Parcells had, but he's been coached and mentored by Bill Parcells. And then the team is going to take on his identity of we're going to be a nasty physical defense, but we're also going to be a clock controlling, run the football kind of an offense that is smart with the football, but aggressive on fourth downs. And it all should mesh together over time the way it needs to. Will it happen year one? I don't think so. But I think in year two and year three, like the Lions went through, you'll start to see them turning the corner and actually you'll understand what the New York Jets are trying to do week in and week out.
So then are you more excited off of the Aaron Glenn? And we're going to talk more about the culture here in a minute, but are you more excited about 2025 than kind of just entering the 24 season with everything that potentially could have gone wrong entering the year with little to no expectations entering 25 versus everything that was last year?
Well, I am because it's about the roster. I'm sure a lot of fans don't agree with that, and I understand it's different, right? My job being the pre- and post-game analyst for SMY for the Jets and covering the game, and I still love this team, but I care more about establishing a football team, a 53-man roster that implements scheme and plays to your players' strengths and cares about special teams. And fans, understandably, not all, but a lot, they love watching star players. And there was a star player feel when Aaron Rodgers came here. So that built different level of excitement. So the Jets winning 5 to 7 games this year, to me, can still be exciting because I could see the team building and scheme implementing process take place onto bigger horizons. Where last year, and it failed miserably, but there was expectations that it could have been great. People were more excited because they love watching star talent play, even if it's not for the better of the entire organization. So it's kind of a different answer from me than a lot of Jets fans or observers would say, but I have more patience, I think, and I'm curious to see what Glenn can do having full power.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like with the Jets, I really think that this is like a ramp, kind of like what you alluded to
Right.
earlier, where eventually, 26, 27, it's going to be, we're going to start to see the foundation really, take place. And this is kind of like the foundation of the house being built here in 2025. So my next question is with Aaron Glenn is how do you think the foundation is going to be structured this year of the roster and everything that's going to be implemented, where there's going to be less distractions and everything around the Jets, where you're just not going to have what it was last year throughout the week?
Well, you've already felt it, right? This time last year, every conversation was about Aaron Rodgers going on a trip instead of going to minicamp. And whether that was fair or harsh criticism, that was the reality. And this year, I don't think one person can recite a Justin Fields quote from OTAs. And I mean that in the best possible way. Justin Fields speaks. I call him our robot quarterback. And I love that. I think he is professionally and perfectly boring, where everything is about the team, the scheme, the coaching, and winning football games. And listen, there was a long time in this league I loved watching Aaron Rodgers play as much as anybody. Eventually, yeah, eventually it catches up to you. And I think it became more about Aaron Rodgers, the person, than Aaron Rodgers, the football player. And the Jets needed a quiet, boring adult offseason. They did that with the draft by, building up their trenches. They're notably the offensive line. I still have a lot of questions at D tackle for this team, but you take Armand Membu, you take Mason Taylor to have a better line of scrimmage. And then you look at the way they've operated during OTAs. It's just Aaron Glenn at the combine. And since he got the job at his press conference, when Aaron Rodgers was still under contract, it has always been about the team. And this is why when a lot of people ask me, why didn't the Jets draft Shedeur Sanders? And I go, listen, the Jets obviously need a young quarterback. Shedeur has talent. But Aaron Glenn can't go up there from day one and say, it's all about the team, it's all about the team, it's all about the team. Move on from Aaron Rodgers because he so wholeheartedly in his heart believes that Aaron Rodgers is bigger than the team. And then take a guy where I don't know how Shedeur operates day to day. That's not what I'm saying. But because of the noise around it, you'd go against everything you just said, where Shedeur gets more of a spotlight. They just want to be quiet and boring. And they got their quarterback in Justin Fields to do that, their style of play, and it'll allow them to reset and be a normal functioning franchise, which is something they've struggled for so long to do.
So, I agree with everything you said. And the title of this video, I haven't determined yet, but it's basically the concept is going to be the Jets are laying the foundation for tomorrow. Like they are, this is the start of something. But one question I do have completely different from all of this is I wanted to talk a little bit about defense, and it's with Sauce Gardner, with Steve Wilkes calling plays, and how you said Glenn's the CEO, and it's been discussed obviously that Steve Wilkes is going to be calling plays, but Glenn's more of a man, he loves calling man coverage. Steve Wilkes loves calling zone coverage. How do you see Sauce Gardner's role in 25?
So these are some of my favorite things about going into a new season with a new regime is that, and I applaud everybody that I do this. Everybody does film and think pieces, and this is how the Jets are going to play. And then now you have two defensive coaches that do so many different things, and everybody's like, are they going to be this or are they going to be that? And they probably are working together to be a blend of what they need to be each week. Now, what I can tell you with confidence is two things. One, they went from an attacking front four to now I think a blitzing front, where the Jets are not just going to pin their front, have their front four, pin their ears back, get off the ball and attack without responsibility to get home. They're going to try to generate pressure and get off the field with blitzing. And that's why they have a lot of speed at linebacker in Jamie Sherwood and Quincy Williams, where, okay, Will McDonald's our best pure pass rusher, and we have Quinnen Williams and Jermaine Johnson coming back from the Achilles, which will take a little while. But how do we keep the offense guessing of where we're going to try to attack from? So they're going to blitz more than they used to. The second thing is, and this really answers your question with Sauce, you got to put more on Sauce Gardner's plate, right? The problem at times with the Jets is it feels like most teams around the NFL, they want their best players to try to beat you. and make your life as difficult as possible. And that's why those best players often they allocate so much more of the cap than everyone else, and deservedly so, because they are more valuable and account differently than everybody else. Now, with Sauce Gardner, as the Jets try to figure out a contract extension with him, Sauce Gardner can't just play a side of the field and just be out there and be a guy. And I'm not blaming Sauce for that, but you need to look at Sauce Gardner and go, hey, can you run around with Jamar Chase today? And you're going to give up some catches. That's the game. But there's going to be times where we need you. We're making you the highest paid corner on this team because we think you can combat the team's highest paid wide receiver or the team's most valuable wide receiver. And you minimizing that competitive advantage for the team is going to allow us to help everybody else on our defense be better. So Sauce has not been asked to shadow yet, but I think you will see more on the plate of Sauce Gardner than you have ever seen before.
So I don't know how much you watched like the Lions towards the end of last year with Amik Robertson and how much do you think that's going to be a similar role with that Glenn wants to have with Sauce over the course of the next couple of years? Sauce is still obviously very young.
He's 24, I believe. I think that he would like him to grow into that kind of, shoulder that kind of load or take that much on his plate. And it won't be every single week, but it'll be like, hey, we really need you this week to handle that because we're asking the rest of our defense to play like this. Where, look in their division, right? We'll start with the Dolphins because they have the most prolific group of pass catchers. Sauce, can you match up with Tyreek right now? And then we could bracket Waddle? Because now without Jonnu Smith in this offense, what is going to be the plan if we're able to do that? So little wrinkles like that, or the other way around. Can you match up with Waddle and then bracket Tyreek? And it's once again, it's maximizing your elite talents. And the Jets haven't been good enough at that. And it goes both ways on both sides of the ball with him and Garrett Wilson. They have to do that.
So now back to the offensive side of the ball with Garrett Wilson. Are you, what's the concern level outside of the receiving room outside of Garrett Wilson?
I think it's extremely fair where the concern is always right. Say Garrett gets hurt and then you're looking around and going like, okay, we don't have anything now. They like Josh Reynolds a lot. Now, is Josh Reynolds a number 2 caliber receiver in today's NFL? I think it's the Jets are going to have to get by that way, which means a lot of pass game work for Garrett, plenty of pass game work for the rookie in Mason Taylor and Breece Hall. And Fields' rushing ability eats into the amount of typical passing reps they have in the offense compared to your average offense. But I think the wide receiver depth chart is an extremely high-end concern with the Jets right now.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive into rapid fire if you're ready.
Let's do it.
All right. Over under. It's going to be simple. Breece Hall, just 1,000 rushing yards on the dot.
I'll take the under. I think he'll land somewhere from 800 to 900, but I think we'll look back at it as a really positive season for Breece because of the receiving yards paired with it.
Okay.
They'll get Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis carries in this offense.
Sure. I'm really excited for Isaiah Davis. I loved him
Yeah.
Coming out of South Dakota State. Now, with Garrett Wilson, over under, same thing, 1,000 yards.
I'll smash the over.
Okay. Are we?
Yeah. I would have taken the over 1,200.
Really? Okay. So I bought in with Garrett Wilson every year. I caught a lot of slack for it last year. I said he'd be OPOY conversation. I'm still buying in. I love the Justin Fields #1 target in any season. Just because of how much of a stare he is, I'm still buying in. Not to that level that I was last year, but I'm still buying in.
Yeah, he's gone over 1,000 all 3 years.
Over under Will McDonald sacks 10.5.
I'll take the over. I think Will gets 11 to 12 this year. He had double digit last year. He's started to develop his body a little bit where he's going to be on the field even more. And some of the wins he had last year against high-end tackles were extremely, extremely impressive.
Okay. Jets wins over under 5.5.
I do like the over here. It's set at 5.5, but if you bet the over, there's nothing there. Like they're really telling you they think the Jets are going to win 6 games, which I think is fair. I think a couple bounces go their way. They win 7. A couple missed kicks like they've had problems in the past don't go their way. They win 5. The Jets feel like a very comfortably 5-7 win team this year. But I would take the over on that, and the betting markets would tell you the same.
Okay, and then last one. Would you have, this is just one that I came up with on the fly, would you have more success guarding Garrett Wilson one-on-one or trying to win a rep against Sauce one-on-one? And that's one I just thought of on the fly.
I can confidently tell you I would never be able to cover Garrett Wilson for a single rep one-on-one. Like that's the easiest one. At least with Sauce, because of human nature, you always have the chance that a human being slips,
right?
Yeah. And I'm obviously shorter than Sauce. Sauce is a gigantic corner that, like, if I can get off the line of scrimmage, which probably can't,
press.
can I just, like, the answer should always be, can you catch one? Because it's so hard to cover one-on-one. But I have zero chance out of 100 plays stopping Garrett Wilson.
That's fair. Well,
unless Aaron Rodgers was at quarterback again, because then the ball would never go his way when he's open.
And then Aaron Rodgers could play the victim role of how it was somehow. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say last part. Anyway, that's not being a Vikings fan, just projecting anything with Aaron Rodgers there. But anyway, Connor, I appreciate you joining, and please let the people know where they can find your work.
Yeah, Matt Connor, J. Rogers on Twitter, NFL Draft and Fantasy Football Happy Hour for NBC, Jets pre and post game on SNY. It's always good to catch up, man. A lot of fun conversations, and I love seeing your channel grow. Do you get a plaque for 200,000 subscribers? Like, this is for gold or platinum?
It goes 100 to 1 million. So it's So
what does the million one look like?
The million's gold. The million's gold.
It is gold.
So, and then I think it goes 1 million. I think to either 5 or 10. It's something. I think it goes to 10 after that, and that's
like Mr.
outrageous.
Beast just has a wall of plaques.
He has a wall. He has like some 300 million one where it's like
he's the only one that has that.
Yeah, it's like some custom made out carved logo, just specifically of like 3D of his, like, whatever his logo is. So it's but
amazing.
But appreciate you joining.
Thanks, Garrett.
I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it helps the channel tremendously, and we are closing in on 200,000 subscribers. The blue t-shirt today was a Satriale's Meat Market shirt, which is a reference to The Sopranos, and that was a TV show based in North Jersey, so shout out to anybody who caught that. But I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.